topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good evening. What a wonderful, beautiful evening. Yes, it's cold, but it brings back those wonderful times when you can turn on the fireplace, enjoy the warmth. And folks, couple of things that I wanted to share. Because of your generosity, we have sold quite a few copies of our book, Expert to Influencer, as you see behind me. Thank you for getting your copy. And if you have not, please do get your copy of Expert to Influencer. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online sites, and get it for yourself to rock your 2021. And at the same time, profits from the book will go to entrepreneurs impacted by COVID-19. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I am delighted to say that I'm looking forward to spending this coming hour with you. So today we are introducing Robert Grigore and Sophia Olivas. Welcome.
Hi, Divya.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. So Sophia, why don't you share a thumbnail version about yourself?
Certainly. So I own a hedge fund that invests in cryptocurrency. I'm also the CEO for Women's Information Network. And as you can see behind me, we are getting ready for the holidays. And I've been taking some time campaigning as a United Nations Association representative and speaking about women's financial sovereignty.
Fantastic. How about you, Roger?
Amazing. Thank you. So I'm a certified EMDR therapist, and I work with celebrities, entrepreneurs, creative professionals in their own right. And I help them to eliminate their worst pain, their most emotional pains, what I consider are prisons or real prisons. I help them to fast track, accelerate their freedom in as little as 3 days. And I do that as well for their whole families. So it's a real honor. It's one of my passions here. And it's funny you mentioned cryptocurrency. I'm just starting to get into that myself because I think that's going to be the way of the future. So very, very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, excited to have you guys here. So Roger, can you tell us exactly what is it that you do? Because you spouted some initials and people may be wondering, what is it?
Yeah, so it's EMDR. That stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's obviously a long name, so we just use EMDR to make it short and quick. So really what that is, it's an accelerated form of neurological processing for working through all different kinds of distress, anything from anxiety to depression to trauma, addiction, you name it. Basically, we can heal it with EMDR. And we take the individual to the root memories that are actually responsible for that current distress, which are anything that's happened throughout that person's entire life that's related to that particular neurological belief system. So It's incredibly exciting. It really shortens treatment times, and the way that I do it, I managed to find a way to do it in a single weekend. So it's really fun. It's an amazing privilege of mine to do this.
Fantastic. So can you share a little bit more? How do you do it?
Yeah, well, so it looks really strange. It looks similar to hypnosis, if you will. Classically, the individual will be sitting there in front of the client would be sitting in front of me, and I'd be waving my hand back and forth, and they'd be following me with their eyes, and it looks very, very strange. But almost magically, the distress drops dramatically. And so we use a scale called the subjective units of distress scale. So something that's as high as 0 be neutral, no distress at all, and 10 be the highest distress you could possibly imagine. We can see people's, 10s going down to zeros in no time. And it looks a lot different than regular, it's a psychotherapy, so it looks a lot different than regular talk therapy. We're not sitting in front of the client and talking for an hour and hoping that, an insight will lead to change, because we've discovered that it doesn't actually work that way. I've had clients, and myself have been in therapy for many, many, many years in talk therapy. And while I got lots of benefit out of it, it wasn't what was changing my issue. So there's actually very little talking that goes on. It's a lot of processing. What we're wanting to do is access both hemispheres of the brain. So we're activating the left hemisphere, which is the analytical, logical side of the brain, and then the right hemisphere, which is the abstract, creative thinking side of the brain. So it looks really, really strange. And people, usually I warn them that it looks weird, and you're going to think I'm, a little crazy when we do this. But as soon as we do it, you're going to see the effects, and you're going to be hooked for life.
Well, that's very interesting, definitely. And we've had a couple of questions come in. So, Sophia, can you share? Somebody wanted to know, what is crypto, if you can describe? And another question was, is it safe?
Absolutely. So first of all, Robert, I have to say I am such a fan. And would it be correct to say that EMDR could be also associated with tapping?
Yeah. In fact, there's the hand movements, and then we also tap on the legs,
which is what I practice. So
EFT.
Yeah.
It's right up there too with EFT. They're both great techniques. Awesome.
Thank you. So so let's talk about cryptocurrency, because it's a pretty hot topic now. We're getting into a bull market, and also China kind of helped pave the way. When coronavirus came, China burned over 80 million yuan because it's considered dirty money, right? Like if you touch money and then you hand it over to a cash register, service rep or something, and now they've got, that's how the virus can transmit, and also other colds and stuff like that. So cryptocurrency is a digital currency. Is it safe? Well, I'll tell you, it's based on blockchain technology. And if you're familiar with blockchain technology, there's a few laws. One of them is that it is immutable. It cannot be changed or altered. It's there for everybody to see. So unlike and it's decentralized. So unlike when you work with a bank, they keep track and they keep those records to themselves. This is in a public space. So it's also transparent. You can see everyone's transactions, you can see, and so therefore it's a trustless system. So I don't have to know Robert to be able to do a cryptocurrency transaction with them, because I know that it's immutable. It's never been hacked, will never be hacked as far as the blockchain, and that it's fully transparent. So I don't have to know him to trust him to do the transaction. Mm-hmm. So that would probably answer, is it safe? It's never been hacked. Until we get quantum computers, there's no chance for it to be hacked.
Well, they're in the works. So for now, we can say they're safe. And as they say, currency, if you kind of think about credit cards,
exactly,
they're very much,
if you think about it, there's only really two types of currency in the world. There's fiat currency, which would be like the dollar, the yen, the euro, and then there's digital currency. Mm-hmm. Most people have been using digital currency. I myself rarely carry cash, especially as a woman, and I travel all over the place. There's no reason for me to carry cash. I use what you have said, Divya, is my credit card or my debit card, which is digital currency. So when most people try to wrap their heads around it, they forget that they've been dealing with digital currency for at least 2 decades.
Yeah, carrying those gold bars around, it just gets really difficult, right? So
You're right. Yeah, that's such a good part. Oh my gosh, Robert, what a great point. So I see people were like, well, the market's going down, so I invested in silver and gold. I'm like, fantastic. So if the economy collapses, you're going to go into the store and you're going to buy like potatoes, and you're going to be like, here, let me shave off a little bit of gold, and they'll take that, right?
Definitely.
I'll take it.
So we are having some pretty good comments coming in. One of the comments is, I recall Apple thought they could not get viruses either. Nothing is truly safe, and we respect that definitely, and people get hacked all the time. So we can leave it at that, definitely there are things that may happen, and as given as it is, probably it is safe. And moving on, and how safe it is, I think, so that's not our topic of the conversation, listeners. So today we'll be talking about empathy and compassion. So I want to share with you, one of you reached out to me via email and shared beautifully that we talk about empathy, we talk about compassion, and how we are stronger together, and how come we are not having tough conversations. And as you've probably noticed, for the past couple of Mondays, we have been having some conversations that we tend to avoid. So today we are going to look at different situations through different lenses. And one thing I want to share over here is that there is no political association and there is no religious association. For me, it's about our connections and interaction as human to human, and not separating each other. That, oh, just because you have this philosophy going on for you, or you associate with this principle, that means you're on one side and I'm on another side. So that was the question that our listener had, that let's talk about it. So let's talk about lockdowns. And I come from a science background, and I'm all about data. So if you look at certain countries in the world, they have been able to manage COVID-19 much better. And what is the reason? What's not? We're not going to go into it. We're just going to look at the situation. So here's the situation. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are suffering due to COVID-19. And on another hand, I've got clients who are in healthcare industry who are so burnt out that a couple of them just cried that, what are we supposed to do? We cannot leave the hospitals and just walk away, because that's the oath we took. So we have two sides here. So Robert and Sophia, everybody's right in theirs. So how can general masses, people who may not be retail store owner, people who may not be healthcare workers, how can they come together in this situation? Look at the situation through the lens of empathy and compassion, and what can be done? So Roger, go ahead first.
Yeah, it's a really, really great question, and it's a challenge that's really difficult, especially with COVID-19 and what's been going on lately. You've got the maskers and the anti-maskers, for example, two sides of the coin. And I think when you're talking about, having difficult conversations, there's no right answer, I don't think. But I think that in order to truly understand somebody else's perspective, when we're talking about empathy, we're looking at being able to experience, actually feel what the other person is feeling. So we want to be able to, for number one, to suspend our judgment of the other person, suspend any criticism. We can't walk into a difficult conversation already anticipating that this is going to be a battle. This is already going to be something that's you're trying to win somebody over. We have to walk into difficult conversations with an open mind, and we need to feel calm. I was actually listening to one of your previous episodes with Deb and Jenny and Scott, and talked about difficult conversations, those tough conversations, and we tend to get activated, emotionally activated, our amygdala in our brains firing if somebody has a very different opinion and we're feeling attacked. And we go into fight, flight, freeze, faint, shut down. Those are very common. And when you're talking about a scenario like we're in now, where life and death are on everybody's mind to a great degree, we're going to see a lot of triggered people. We're going to see a lot of people that are feeling very anxious, very stressed. And when you're talking about our civilization is based on, or the economy, which is based on entrepreneurs, and people need to work and to make money. And when you have, the majority of the world is shut down right now, you can't go in, retail stores are not operating the same that they used to be, and people have to adapt. And there's a lot of stress that our world is being faced with right now. And to really drop into this calm place of listening to what that person's experience is and imagining yourself in their shoes. What would it be like if you lost your business because of COVID-19? What would it be like if you lost your spouse because of COVID-19? What would it be like to be that person? That's what we're talking about for empathy. We're really actually feeling it, and our brain actually we're designed or wired to mirror the other person's experience. We've got something called mirror neurons in our brain that actually can help us to feel the other person. So it actually does take some time, and it's a skill that you can learn. There's a great book out there by Helen Reese, who I think it's called The Empathy Effect. It's really, really good. And one of the things that I really quick just want to mention that you mentioned about, doctors and healthcare workers being exhausted right now is compassion fatigue, right? As they're working so hard. It's very difficult to be empathetic when you're exhausted, because empathy takes energy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's a good segue for us to talk about that there is empathy burnout. And especially when you see that some of the healthcare workers have lost their lives. So the way I look at the situation is that we need to take a look at ourselves individually and look at what is my civic responsibility. If there is a local entrepreneur shop, how can I support them? If it is healthcare worker, how could I support them? What could I do? Forget about anybody else. What could I do in today's situation to help somebody else? Sophia, so let's say you're sitting there with cryptocurrency, okay?
Sure.
And you have two clients. They're just kind of coming and sitting right in front of you. Two women, since you run Women's Network. One is a healthcare worker. One is an entrepreneur. And maybe a third one, just to make it even a tougher mix, is somebody who is a politician. And let's say they're speaking either side, that one politician may be saying, oh, we need a lockdown. One politician may be saying we need to remain open. How would you resolve that situation?
Well, I guess I would take more of a behavioral standpoint. What would have somebody disagree with the lockdown? Like, if you were to look at that, I would think that you would find at the source of that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that needs to be addressed before you start to say, before you start to make suggestions. So I'm going to kind of bring cryptocurrency into it, so you can kind of understand. Cryptocurrency has been able to insert a new dialogue that it is far more lucrative to do business outside of the legacy world of financial institutions. So it's introduced a new conversation. So what I think would help and benefit in this situation that you're bringing about is to actually introduce a new conversation, and that's to address the fears. So if you're telling people that a lockdown would help us, of course, empathetically, they might know that subconsciously and agree with that. You're also, though, as an entrepreneur, for instance, they have a responsibility to their clients, to their workers, and to their families, to themselves. So now you're putting them in a position to choose, to choose. And that's a choice. That's a win. That's a lose situation, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think, though, if you were to able to hand them over something and to have them generate with you, and I think that's the best thing, is to get all sides to come to the table and to generate and create together. Mm-hmm. Not that people don't want to wear masks and don't want to, it's not that people say, when you hear people not wanting to wear masks and not wanting the lockdown, it's not, I think people tend to go to, they're disregarding life and they don't understand. I think it goes back to the core of fear is what would happen to their lives if they just stopped what they knew, what they were comfortable with, and what would it take for them, and this is the word of 2020, to pivot.
Absolutely. So you're right on bringing people to the table, putting everything on the table and saying, this is what we have. And why can't we come together and just come up with a solution? And today, actually, I posted something. Somebody had shared with me that there was an anthropologist. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. So anthropologist, still didn't pronounce it. It's okay. And he was working with young African kids. And he said that, there's a tree down there and there are some apples. Whoever runs fastest can go get more apples or fruits. And the kids came together, held their hands, and ran together, picked all the fruits, sat down, and divided equally amongst themselves. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not talking about socialism here, folks, because I know we have heightened tensions. What I'm referring over here is something called Ubuntu, which is so powerful, is coming together and solving the problem. Because we have to look out for our generations to come. And I can share with you, so many kids are experiencing mental health distress. So many people are experiencing distress. So as it is, it's there. It's not the time to take sides. It's the time to come together and find solutions. So definitely a great point. Roger, would you like to add anything to it?
Yeah, you know what? That was a great post. I actually saw that on your page today too. And you talking about the concept of fear and what's going on in our world, it's important to to understand sort of the building blocks. There's, in regards to empathy, there's sympathy, which we start off with, which is more that sort of you feel bad for somebody, you pity somebody, and you might be inclined to support. Right, that's so which might be supporting some person on the other side of the world, or you can feel bad for them. Then you got empathy, which you're actually really feeling that person's pain, and then you've got compassion, which is because through empathy, then we're actually wanting to do something to help. And then I even go further into grace. There's a whole nother level there, and when we're talking about the division in our world right now, we've got, the anti-maskers, and you've got the rights, and you've got the left, and you've got all these different areas of division. One thing that I'm actually incredibly grateful for, and I hope that COVID-19 is going to actually help our world with, is this is a global trauma that we're all faced with. This could be a unifying moment in time. There's never been anything like this ever, except maybe the Ice Age or something like that, where the entire world was affected by the same thing. So what this can encourage us to do is to look past our differences and actually recognize that we're part of the same tribe, because that's what fear is all about in terms of our social constructs. We're afraid. Back in our evolution, we started off, and as human beings, honestly, we're not very adept at our environment. We don't have sharp teeth. We can't run very fast. We can't climb trees very quickly. Like, we're not really great in our social and in the jungle, if you will. So we've evolved to be part of tribes. We evolved to attach ourselves to the in groups that actually make us feel safe, and that actually could make us survive. So we've evolved to develop empathy in order to understand and to feel part of a tribe or group. When we have fear, one of the bases of that fear is to actually, be afraid for ultimately our death, that some other tribe is going to come in and kill us. And so I think COVID-19 has the opportunity to help us try to recognize that we're actually part of the same tribe. We're part of the human being tribe, and we're all in this together. So that's, I think, one of the benefits that hopefully COVID can help us with. And, when we recognize that actually I could give to any entrepreneur around me, which would be helping me, which would be helping my tribe. And so that's something I wanted to add there.
Yeah, definitely. So we have talked about that, and now I want us to move to a personal level, to your journeys, going back to Roger, back to you, as what was it that made you go into the direction where you are right now in your career?
That's a good question. So there's been a lot of different points in my life. I've had, I think like most people, we've had many different choice points. And one of the, I guess, using what we're sort of talking about now, I went into EMDR after I was finding that I was actually burning out with talk therapy, that I wasn't being able to really help my clients to the degree that I wanted to help them with. I was still providing, excellent empathy, and I was still providing, great space, but there was just something missing. It was like trying to, climb a mountain with a, 100-pound weight on my back. It was just really, it was low, and I'm not training to do that. So I was starting to get well known in Vancouver, BC, up here. And I was starting to get well known for, being one of what I consider kind of a hot shot in the EMDR world, where I was helping people with, like cutting their treatment times down in half into a quarter of the time. So, 6 months, 3 months, even for some of my clients. And I had a high profile media celebrity that contacted me and said, "Hey, Robert, can you help me with my addiction and my performance anxiety?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, I guess celebrities have performance issues as well. So come on, Ann, let me help you." And she comes in and she sat down for my typical intake session. And she got up after just the halfway point in the session. So about 3/4 of the way, she got up and she said, "Robert, I don't think you can help me fast enough." And she just left. Mm-hmm. And I went, fell flat on my face. And I thought, well, okay, so I guess you're not quite as great at this as you thought, Robert. So it's time to eat some humble pie, and let's figure out a way how to actually make this faster. So I ended up creating my one and done packages, which is now really shortening the treatment times for 3 days in a lot of cases for my clients for that total elimination. So, and the reason why. She actually really inspired me, because I started working with some professional athletes at the highest level, and some actors and a couple of directors. And so it started going really well. And I started recognizing that my clients, I actually have been looking up to my celebrity clients, the actors and musicians, as some of the real leaders of our world, especially in the creative world and in pop culture. That a lot of people are following what these individuals do, because their influence is so great. And yet at the same time, there's been something by my count, 150 celebrity suicides. And over this last decade, over just 10 years, so many suicides. And this, just breaks my heart that, these are people sometimes don't have anybody else to look up to, and, they're following these individuals, and then they make that kind of a choice. So I wanted to help them and help the world to have their heroes, their creative heroes. I used to be a musician, so I'm partial to the creative artists. But so that's really why I got into it. And I guess the future is we're going to see what's going to happen in 2021 for me.
Absolutely. And Sophia, cryptocurrency is so new and yet not so new. It's been around and it took a dive and then it has come back in. So what made you go for it?
Yeah, we love those cycles, right? Everything has a cycle. So it's not that I took a dive, just it's in its cycle. So it's been in a bear cycle and now it's hitting bull cycle. And what made me get into crypto? Well, I guess we'd have to go back and then start talking about some inflection points. For me, I grew up, my childhood was spent with a father that didn't really controlled all the money. And my mother had a 6th grade education. And so I saw very early in life how women had very few choices if they didn't have financial sovereignty, and they would have to stay in dangerous situations because of that. And so I left home at an early age. I left home at 14. I thought I could do better than what was going on at home, and I left and did way better. And I've solo backpacked over 35 countries. So I've gained a really broad perspective, and I've seen massive poverty in my work with the UN. I've been in refugee camps. And then I just had this moment where where everything kind of culminates, right? It's the hero's journey, where you start to see that everything that's been happening in your life, your fires, your tribulations, your failures, and of course your successes. And I quickly saw that, especially in third world countries, the liberation for women that cryptocurrency gave them. And I started working with women in third world countries because it's borderless. You can then make your business global overnight and accept currency, and you don't have to go. A lot of women are bankless. They're unbankable. So if you're in a third world country, sometimes you're 1,000 miles away from any type of financial institution. And with women, we do overall make less than men, and that is still going on. And so taking out loans, and sometimes we are the ones that a lot of homes are single parent, and we're the ones that are mostly raising the kids. So there's an added financial burden. So how do we get up ahead of them? Like, how do I get women to be able to get financially viable in whatever they choose to do? And I saw once cryptocurrency came onto the scene, I was like, this is it. This is how we can get women, like, it levels the playing field instantly. There's none of that misogyny. There's none of those conversations. They just don't exist anymore. And I started to lead discussions and conversations that wasn't moving fast enough. And then I also just had a lot of women who were executives, and they just started kind of handing me money, and they're like, can you just put it in the market? I just either don't have time, don't want to learn it. And then I was like, wait a minute. That's what I could do. I could put together a fund so that while I'm teaching people and while I'm out there educating them, they could capitalize and leverage the bull market going on. And that's how I jumped into it. I found one of the top crypto experts in the world. He's one of a handful of people in the world that can do what he does. And he was working for the Department of Defense, and he was in cybersecurity and cyber terrorism. And yeah, we partnered up and we created this fund, and now we're outperforming the market and other funds, even like Grayscale, which is one of the largest funds, period.
Wow, we have had a few questions come in. No, go ahead, Roger.
I just want to say that's amazing. I just your mission is so needed and admirable that I think for for a lot of my clients and me as well, I think that, we often talk about money not being, the source of happiness, but it really can be the source of freedom. And so when you have enough money, I look at it's a basic personal need now, and you can't live without money. And that's what this COVID-19, which is really activating for people, is that we're struggling. A lot of people are struggling to live, make it month by month. So what you're doing to be able to provide, access for people, even, people in different country that can't even, I didn't even know that. I mean, that makes sense. 100 miles or 1,000 miles before you can get to a bank I feel like you're leveling and you're balancing some of the basic human rights that we all need to be able to have. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I love it.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Very inspirational. So we have had some questions from our listeners. One of the questions is, how were you able to get passport at the age of 14?
Well, legally, I couldn't start traveling until I was 18. However, I'm American, so we could go to 2 different countries without having passport at that time. And once you're in Mexico, you can actually keep on going without a passport. So I was able to travel a lot through Latin America. Back then, I'm a lot older than you probably think. Back then, we didn't have to have passports. That was a very long time ago. It was many decades ago.
And you look very young, Sophia. And another question is, how long has been crypto around?
So Satoshi Nakamoto was the creator of Bitcoin. That's the first one, and that's what everything trades against. So there's thousands. There's over 5,000 types of cryptocurrency, and they all trade against. They're all called altcoins, and they trade against Bitcoin, just like everybody trades pretty much against the dollar, because we're the standard for the oil market, right? So that got created in 2008, released in 2009.
Mm-hmm. So, Roger, coming back to you. Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
I missed what you asked.
Oh, okay. No, I wasn't sure if you were saying something. So, Roger, going back to you, it's very, how should I say, inspiring that sometimes what happens is we do get awed by celebrities and high caliber athletes. And yet when somebody left you in the middle of a session, you did not take it as an insult. Rather than that, you took that as a pivoting turn where you could improve on what you were teaching and what you were delivering value to your clients. So that's great. So coming back to it, if we were to pulling things together as to what would you say, Roger, is that you talked about empathy burnout. So how did you deal with that? And how can people come back to having empathy and even moving beyond empathy to compassion? Because as you mentioned, when you have empathy, you're feeling the pain of somebody else. Versus compassion is that you are looking at a bigger picture and you're able to still hold them in place of kindness. So talk me through it and tell our listeners, how can they make that transition?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of life happening for you rather than it happening to you. And so I look at any opportunity as an opportunity for growth. So, I've been asked many times in different contexts as to comment on what's happening right now. And other than some suggestions as to how to maintain your sanity, personally right now, it's important to recognize that empathy actually isn't just for other people. We have to have empathy for ourselves. We need to know that we matter and our feelings are important. And so, when that celebrity walked out on me, I didn't just say, well, let me figure something else out. No, I had a cry session. I thought, oh my God, like I'm not doing this. I'm not good enough, or what was this all about? So I had my moment, and then I looked at myself in the mirror, which is a great way to build self-empathy, actually, by looking at yourself in the mirror and just staring at yourself for a while and trying to see into my heart and my soul and just really acknowledging myself as if I was a different person, sort of, and just say, wow, that was really hard, wasn't it, Robert, that this, this person walked out on you. And it's okay to feel what you're feeling, and let's think of how we can manage this. And it didn't come over, overnight, and all of a sudden I came up with my new strategy. It took a lot of time. It took about almost a year, I think, before I actually launched it, my first weekend package. So I think for people right now, I feel like the word of the year in terms of finances and the economy and businesses is pivot. We got to pivot. We have to figure out what we're going to do next. And you can't pivot properly without understanding what the people need. So as entrepreneurs or business leaders or celebrities or artists or investors, whatever, you're looking at what do people need right now? And when you can understand that consumer, that customer, you can understand what you would need. That's where empathy comes into pivoting to a new direction of what's going to be helpful. I mean, think of what you're doing. You're helping people grab their hold of their freedom, their financial freedoms. I think that's something that people need right now, more than ever, and probably even more going to 2021 and further. Like, we're going to need that so much more. And so for me, I recognized what do my clients need? They need speed. Okay. And, if somebody's coming in to do Vancouver, by the way, is like mini LA. So it's a lot cheaper to film up here because we have the Canadian dollar. And so there's a lot of filming here. We have great weather. It's almost like LA, but not quite. So we got a lot of movies here. And so having, an actor might come in to do a show, to shoot a movie or a TV show, and they don't have 3 months to spend. They need it done now. They might have a weekend because they don't start filming until X, Y, and Z date. So they could do it in a weekend. Or, I work with CEOs a lot where time is very, very valuable. I think time is our most valuable resource, oddly, because it feels like we have so much of it these days, but I still think it's our most valuable resource. So I recognize those are my deepest needs of my clients. They need to have more time where they can be their best selves and put their best creative energies into their work, and relieve them of their deepest pains, their self-sabotaging behaviors like addictions and relationship issues. So if I can get in there and I can help them as soon as possible, 3 days, that's so valuable for them, especially if they have to go and perform like that night. They need something now. So so I tapping into what they need. That's their empathy, what they need is my way of empathizing with them.
Absolutely. So, Sophia, you work with women all across the globe, and it's very, very powerful. It's important because, as you mentioned, women have experienced that. And there are things as they are, and yet it's important that we continue doing what we can to help them. So what would you say as far as transitioning between empathy to compassion?
Yeah, I think Robert, and he mentioned a book, and I'm glad you already put that on my list. Just so you know.
That's a good one.
That's one I haven't read. I think the more that you understand yourself, and to the extent that you're able to have empathy for yourself, is the extent to which you can then have that for another, both in the understanding and willingness and in the level of empathy. So right now, a lot of people, I think, are finding that they have a little bit more time than they did before COVID, if only because they're just not traveling for work. And I think that time is so precious to do some inner work, to do some shadow work, and to look at what has you not be interested and not be compelled, because as humans, right? Like let's take apart those that have like any type of psychopathy or mental health issues. But as humans, it's internally, like within us, we're compelled to help and to contribute. Like men, that's their whole thing in life, is to contribute, right? Like that's where they get their value and their worth, is their level of ability to contribute. And sometimes that looks like what the biggest wallet is, right? But it comes out in different ways. It comes out in many different things. So what has you then go against that nature? Like, what is it? And there's something there. And I think that that's a great, phenomenal opportunity for some investigative shadow work. There's some blind spots that are going on. And I think that the more that people are willing to take on and become self-aware, wow. Like if you just did that to yourself, the whole world would change instantly. And it does change when the more work that you do on yourself, that's the quickest way to get the world to change. It's almost night and day.
Absolutely. So Robert and Sophia, you have brought so much to the table. And Robert, I apologize. I have called you Roger for a couple of times.
That's okay.
So it's, and then it just, realization happened. And so thank you, both of you. So if you can share, starting with you, Sophia, like if our listeners were to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
Sure. So for me, I think the best way to reach would be, are we going to put up websites, or how are we doing this?
It's just, you'll share it on over here. We don't put the website or anything in the show notes. So.
Got it. I would say, let's see if I can pull up a really quick Bitly for you. Would be to come through for our website for our hedge fund. And that would be oneworldnow.com.
Is that one spelled O-N-E or the number one?
Oh, thank you. That's really good. You could do it either way.
Oh, good for you. Yeah.
And is there any other information you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, so we have a free video, because a lot of people may not even know what my conversation was today on your show. You may not even know what cryptocurrency is, or blockchain. You may have heard about Bitcoin, and you probably heard about all the stuff on the news where people lost money. So I put together this whole educational system with my partner, and the first video is free, and it actually starts off with, what is Bitcoin? What's crypto? How do you use it? What is it? And so it's on the site, and we just, please take it and share it with people, have conversations about it. Let it open up a dialogue for financial literacy. There's a lot of people that are hurting right now, and even more so when the moratoriums end shortly. When the music stops, there's going to be a lot of people without chairs. So please use it as a tool to educate those around you, learn it yourself, and then teach it to someone else, which will have you learn it even more.
Beautiful. And Roger, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, you could reach me at two different websites. I'm going through a slight rebrand. So Grigor Counseling, my last name, Grigore, counseling, counselling.com, or you can use the American spelling for counseling, or you can go to thecelebritysavior.com, which is something I've been named or called recently. So I've kind of just sort of moved into that direction. And you can find everything you need on that website, all about me and what I do. And I also have to say that I really think that crypto is the future. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't give advice or anything like that, but I've been spending some of my most valuable resource, which is time, trying to understand this new language, which is sort of like mathematics for me, but it's really, it's fascinating. And I really think that that's going to be a huge part of our lives going forward. So I encourage people to hook up with Sophia and learn more.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robert, for being gracious and not calling me out. I appreciate that.
Good. You're right. We're all humans.
Yeah. So, as they say, things happen. So thank you, both of you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. So appreciate you for all your wonderful questions and staying engaged. And do connect with me so that whatever you desire, so this way it guides us to have shows like these and have those tough conversations. And thank you, Rebel, for making this show possible. And be safe and be brilliant. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.